It is, in a way, an odd thing to honor those who died in defense of our country, in defense of us, in wars far away. The imagination plays a trick. We see these soldiers in our mind as old and wise. We see them as something like the founding fathers, grave and gray-haired. But most of them were boys when they died, and they gave up two lives, the one they were living and the one they would have lived. When they died, they gave up their chance to be husbands and fathers and grandfathers. They gave up their chance to be revered old men. They gave up everything for our country, for us. And all we can do is remember.
Okay, man, what's going on? Family man, it's your boy Trap Vision 3D, man. I got somebody special here. You guys know for the entire month of August, man, we're raising money for veterans, right? So you guys know that I'm a vet, military of the Army, but I got somebody here that has put in more time, more years, got more deployment, highly decorated soldier, and he was in leadership. So let me introduce to you the man, the myth, the legend. He didn't walk it, he didn't lived it, he did everything. This is J.R. Newman, Lieutenant Colonel. All right. You made it, Colonel? Full bird? You got your full bird?
I got my full bird.
Okay, well, full bird, man, full bird. I'm gonna have to change the thing out. So last time we talked, you hadn't got it yet. The last time. So okay, I stand corrected. I will correct that in there. So we're talking to full bird Colonel Newman. So, brother, thank you for doing this. Thank you for coming on here, man. Before we get started, bro, I want to give them a little bit of background. I seen that you did an interview before. I don't know how many years ago that was.
I can send you that. They did it for the Library of Congress.
Yes, I got it. I got a copy of it. I was looking at it. I said it was good stuff.
Yeah,
that was good stuff. Like so you got the you have to look at the background and stuff like that. And what I'll do is I'll share it in this. I'll link it so you guys can actually watch it and see him. He was in uniform and beautiful interview. What's going on, Robert Wood? Thank you for being in here, man. So give us a little bit of your background, man. Like, okay, when did you join the military?
I got commissioned in 1987.
Okay. 87.
Yeah. But I started out really, it doesn't matter where you start in life, it's where you finish. I started out as a busboy and a dishwasher at the Dry Dock restaurant on Pelham Pike. And I did that for a while, and then I was a cook, and then I was a headline cook. And I had a friend of mine back from the Air Force Academy. He said, "What are you doing?" And I had a cocktail waitress on each arm, and I was drinking for free and living like a total heathen. And I had a beard and long hair, and I thought I was a headline cook. I was making $8.75 an hour. And he goes, "What are you doing, man? Seriously, you want to fly jets?" And I was like, "What? Yeah, I want to fly jets. How do I do that?" So I, at the drop of a hat, in 1984, shaved my beard off, cut my hair, went down, took the Air Force officer qualifying test, landed a pilot slot, started out at IUROTC, and then ended up, I'd been going to school for a while, but didn't really know what I wanted to do, man. I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do. Right. And so I ended up talking to a counselor, and they said, the only way you can graduate by May of 87 is transfer to Purdue. And I had to transfer to Purdue and actually buy the books and go to class, and still was struggling to get C's. I made the honor roll down at IU, but Purdue was a little different story. It was a little harder. They don't play around with it. But I got commissioned, went to pilot training, and worst time in the world to go through pilot training because it was right after the height of the Reagan buildup, and they were banking pilots, and washout rate for pilot training is normally around 15%. Our class was 40%. They were finding excuses to wash people out, and really frustrating. I felt like we were being labeled. Everybody's going to have a bad day and a bad flight. Right, Any given day, you're 3 flights away from washing out. But I felt like I'd been labeled and didn't really get a fair shot, but I got over it and I stayed professional and stayed in the military. And I did 5 years active duty. I went from Oklahoma to California to Alaska.
Okay.
And then right after, in 92, right after President Clinton got in, I was ROTC, that's Reserve Officer Training Corps. So I was a reserve officer serving on active duty. But in the fine print, you're serving at the convenience of the president. And if they decide they want to cut the military, because the Berlin Wall had come down, they thought there was peace breaking out all over the world. When the Soviet bear was dead, but there's 1,000 snakes in the woodpile. And that's, Bosnia kicked off and all those other things. And so I had a pregnant wife, 2 dogs, no job, no house, 5-year captain, didn't get any severance pay or anything. Came back and went to work for my mom's business out at Mount Comfort Airport, working at MJ Aircraft. And then we can call it luck or we can call it God, but my wife was asked to sub as a dental hygienist in Carmel. And she was picking teeth on a guy, and I was like, what do you do? Oh, he was in the Guard. A guy by the name of Colonel Gillespie. And my wife said, well, my husband wants to try and get in the Guard, and he was best friends with the support group commander in Terre Haute at the 181st Spider Wing. And they were looking for a guy with my credentials. Because I had contacted the Guard Bureau and everybody else to see if there were any jobs. Said, no, we don't have any. Well, I'm going to say God had his hand on that, because it brought me back home. And my dad was a retired Army colonel that served 3 tours in Vietnam. And he was sick at the time. And so I actually had my oldest brother, Jim, flew C-130s in Vietnam and Desert Storm. Second oldest brother, Mike, was a A6 pilot. He was an Annapolis grad.
Okay.
And so there was 105 years of military service in our family. Yeah. So, but it was really wild how all of my experiences, helped prepare me for the next events.
Right.
So I managed to get on at the Guard and then got hired on full time in 1998 and kept making rank. And but when my dad died, I got a family that's very diverse. Nine kids. We got everything: red state, blue state, rainbow state. We got everybody, and it really could have. Funerals can bring out the best or the worst in people.
Yeah, true.
And that was one moment in time where my mom goes, JR's in charge. Well, I had been a mortuary affairs officer and an honor guard commander, and I knew how to navigate all of it. And we put on a funeral for my dad that was, he'd always said, because he was drafted in World War II, was like, just bury me in a pine box out back. I don't want any fanfare. I thought, I'm not going to do that.
Right.
So we did a full-up funeral for him with caisson and all, full honor guard, band, riderless horse. It was really pretty awesome. And it wasn't until after the 21-gun salute, you hear the crack of the rifles echoing, and it was wintertime, snowflakes this big coming down. They popped that flag, and the snow hung in slow motion for a minute. I suddenly realized that everything I'd been through prior to that point was prepping me for that point, that there was another plan in my life. So I would encourage anybody out there who's struggling with anything in life, keep fighting, because there's a plan for you.
Okay, so what he's sharing, y'all, part of his life, of course. So I want to jump to the part where you deployed. You went to Afghanistan first, correct?
Yep.
Went to Afghanistan, and I remember you had some type of program. You did something where you were doing something for the people of Afghanistan.
Yeah, I was. And so Well, the reason I wanted to deploy is after 9/11, I kept people kept people coming up to me, hey, thank you for your service, buying me coffee. I remember we were doing I was with the recruiters and we were doing a hometown Thursdays in Terre Haute at a little diner. And a little old lady came in there and she saw us in uniform. She goes, what are you in? I go, we're Air Force. She goes, well, my husband was Air Force. We go, really? What'd he do? He flew B-17s. Mm. I'm like, oh my God, thank you for our freedom, right?
Right, right.
And we got ready to leave. And so you got a widow on a fixed income. And I was getting mad. I mean, we were kind of goofing off a little bit out of the office, but I needed to get back to work. And I kept waiting for the bill. And finally, I pulled the waitress over and I go, where's our bill? She said, that little old lady.
Pay for it.
I was like, okay, that's it. And then the adjutant general I had always wanted to deploy because I just felt like I was practicing for war, but sitting the bench. It was like,
Right,
you
right,
know,
right.
and so, and I felt like I hadn't earned it, which is wrong because when you put the uniform on and you take the oath, you're willing to lay your life down whether you're called or not, and it's honorable service regardless of whether you're deployed or not. But General Umbarger, who was the adjutant general for the state of Indiana, stood up one day and said, I don't care who you are or where you work or what rank you are. We've had soldiers that have been on 3, 4, and 5 deployments. If you haven't deployed yet, deploy. And so I saw something come out for Iraq at Baghdad, and I thought, man, I want that. Well, it was already taken. So I'm talking to the guy at Pentagon. I go, man, is there anything else? He goes, well, we need a combat advisor in Afghanistan. And I kind of gave him my verbal resume, and he goes, oh, you're perfect. I was thinking either I'm perfect or he's desperate, but
right, either way.
And I was like, all right, I'm in. Well, I didn't really realize what I was getting into. First, I told my wife I would be a tent city mayor somewhere, you know. You get hit with a rocket, you get hit with a rocket. It was just your number came up. But 2 weeks later, phone started ringing, and they go, hey, man, you got to go to 60 days of combat advisor training, Fort Polk, Louisiana. And I was on a joint team, Navy, Army, and Air Force. Mm-hmm. And we were all learning the same language and tactics and techniques and procedures. And so we had to come together as a team before we deployed. And I remember we had the cultural awareness training. And it was really important that there was a couple general orders over in the war zone where you're not allowed to prophesize or share your faith. Obviously, no pornography, no alcohol, right?
Right.
And all of that. But so we would go 5 days a week on convoy, but we'd have 2 days that were low battle rhythm days. But I had 3 trucks and signature authority to do whatever I wanted. Well, people were donating stuff from the United States, and I thought, well, there were refugees. I remember refugees west of Afghanistan that were living in mud huts. They didn't have any food and water. Little kids that looked like they hadn't been bathed since they were born. And the church back home told them we needed blankets and hats and scarves and gloves. And then one day I got a call and there was like 40 boxes of things that showed up. And then there was a thing called Operation Outreach Afghanistan where people from the United States were donating shoes and, you know, school supplies and stuff. So I decided on low battle rhythm days on a purely volunteer basis, I needed to get 2 gunners, right? So I had a gunner in the front, a gunner in the back. And we decided that we were going to do humanitarian projects on the low battle rhythm days because, to me, giving somebody that's freezing a blanket transcends politics and religion and everything else. Here's a blanket. Here's a hat. Here's gloves and scarves. And we actually did a drop at the Central Ammunition Supply Depot because we wanted to win the hearts and minds of the people there. Because we go there and we need friendly people.
Right. So let me get this straight. So because like you guys overall had a mission. You had a mission. You like a battle captain.
Yeah.
Right? But then you created this mission for like to give to the people.
Yeah.
So let me explain something to you guys. So when I was in Iraq, we had a similar situation. The best way I can explain the atmosphere of Iraq and Baghdad, rough terrain, it's hot, it's sandy, and there's always a mission. There's always danger. There's always a pressure plate somewhere, or they're always watching, right? So what he did was went outside of the parameters. You know what I'm saying? He's the battle captain. And to give to somebody in that type of situation, man, like it's easy for somebody to just say, hey, let me go out here and go to McDonald's and buy 100 sandwiches and hand it out to somebody on the corner. It's easy. The worst that's gonna happen is you're gonna block traffic. The worst that can happen to him for doing that is he end up getting killed. You know what I'm saying? Or captured. You know what I'm saying? Because there's always a danger of capture. You know what I'm saying? And you're responsible for men. So I just wanted to kind of get the context of what he's done, what he's accomplished, and the task and just being there, the whole atmosphere in the Middle East.
And I gotta tell you two other stories. Well, one thing, the Taliban hated us for that. Because the Taliban said the Americans are the evil Satan and they're evil people and they want to kill us. But we were able to win over hearts and minds by dropping school supplies at a school. And I'm telling you what, these kids were hungry to go to school. But what we would do is I had a guy named Rambo because he was crazy. He would get with the ANA and the A&P, the Afghan National Forces and the Afghan police, the army and the police. And we would never give a heads up to where we were going because we knew the Taliban would target us. And so he would go 15 minutes ahead and radio back and say, all right, bring it on. And I remember one time we went to there was a refugee camp that had 800 people there, 400 from one tribe and 400 from another. And they were at Kandahar that was infested with Taliban and selling drugs and doing all this. And so they pulled all the people out, and then the Air Force went in and leveled it, just leveled that town because it was just a hot spot. And so we had done one humanitarian aid drop, and my heart broke because we just didn't have enough. And I told the tribal leader, I said, I'll be back. So that's when I got the 40 boxes of blankets. And then one guy went and bought every blanket in the BX. We had a 9-vehicle convoy, blankets to the top. The trucks that didn't have gunners in them, we filled turrets with blankets. I mean, it was unbelievable. And then there was an old tent that we weren't using, and we donated that. But Rambo comes back and tells me that an 8-hour firefight had broken out between the two tribes, and 8 people were shot, or more than that, maybe 2 people died. And so these guys were feuding. So when I come up on the spot, the 2 tribal leaders wanted me to do 2 drops, and that would have made us way too vulnerable. And I just looked at them and I said, I'm not doing it. You guys need to stop fighting long enough. I'm doing 1 drop. You stop fighting long enough to divvy it up. By the time I got done, they hugged. These 2 guys that were fighting the day before hugged. And that's why I say that you can make a difference. And I'll tell you one other thing that was really cool about it is I had a woman named Nadia, Major Nadia, who was running the Women's Center. And they had 100 women in a room that was 30 feet long and 20 feet wide. with an open hole in the ground for them to use the restroom. Well, meanwhile, there was this mosque or center building in the compound, and I went to General Bashir and I said, "Hey, give me the building." There was a corrupt mullah that wouldn't give him the building. I said, "Give me the building for the women." I said, President Karzai and General Petraeus have both said 10% of the Army and the ANP, the police, are going to be women. You got to start treating the women better. I said, they'll name a traffic circle after. I said,
Right.
So I did a drop for them. It was unbelievable. Gave them the blankets and the hats and gloves and scarves and all that. Well, 4 months later, Major Nadia called me up 5:30 in the morning one time and said, "Don't come today." I said, "Why is that?" She said, "There's going to be a suicide bomber at 4 o'clock today."
Mm.
And sure enough, at 4 o'clock that day, there was a suicide bomber. So had I been an ugly American trying to ram my ideology down their throats and not respecting their culture, I tried to learn their language. I spoke broken Dari. I had an interpreter. She had a $10,000 price tag on her head. But she would do a shell game just to get to where we were every day. But that was an example of what happens when you're winning hearts and minds through your deeds. And it made a difference, because if I was an ugly American, she might not have let me know that there was a suicide bomber. I know that in the case of Iraq, there was a colonel that was a real jerk who was treating everybody bad. And he was in the lead vehicle and got taken out.
Mm.
And it was like he was coming back to base, and everybody knew he was going to get hit, and he got hit. And I'm certain, well, I don't know for sure, but I know that my actions, I had the interpreters tell me they were praying to Allah for my protection.
It's funny you say that. So we have a comment from the people that's watching. Only the love of God and the power of the Holy Spirit can guide a man to be so selfless. You are a blessing, Colonel. So that's from Space G. Appreciate that comment, sir. Appreciate that comment. Love and Live Show. Thank you for being here. So let me ask you this, because I know then you can swap stories about like our time deployed and stuff like that. Once you got back home, what was for you, not for anybody else, what was the hardest thing you had to deal with coming back home?
Well, for me, I had unrecognized PTSD.
Mm.
So what happened was, and it wasn't until I went to one of these OEF, the Raudebush VA is really good. I got invited to this retreat, and we were in a group with our spouses, and everybody was talking deployments and everything. And he said, the reason I was struggling at home wasn't that my family changed, it was I changed in the war zone. And I finally boiled it down to what was driving me crazy. And when I was on mission, I would call something out on a radio. If I saw a vehicle that was a possible vehicle borne, VBID, I'd say sidewinder right, and truck 2 and truck 3 would go 2, 3. They would do an immediate acknowledgement of the transmission. And when I got home, I'd say, "Hey, honey," and there'd be a 5-second pause, and I would get loud. And so finally, I pulled my family together and I go, "Look, here's the deal. I just spent 7 months on a heightened state of adrenaline where I was getting split-second answers." So I told my son James, I go, "When I go, 'Hey, James,' I need you to acknowledge that transmission."
Right.
Because if not, you're going to drive me crazy, because I'll do James, and then I'm yelling James, and I'm yelling at my son, and I'm yelling at my wife and my daughter. James, you can come back with "Yeah, Dad," or "Screw off, Dad," or whatever, but at least they have to acknowledge the transmission. The other thing was, when I drove, I remember I was down at 38th in German Church, hyper vigilant when I drive. Hyper vigilant. I was coming up on the light and it was a steel yellow, and I scanned 360. My wife didn't even see me do it. And I gunned it. She goes, "What are you doing?" And I go, "Well, the guy behind me that's following too close has a girl behind her texting." I said, "If I jam on the brakes, we're going to have a 3-car pileup here at the intersection." So I gunned it. She goes, "Oh my God, you need to calm down." And I go, "I don't know. I just avoided an accident. So you tell me," right? But the other thing was that the VA, from wearing the body armor and riding in the trucks, kind of hunched over, and you got 65 pounds of gear. I had an upper lumbar disc out, and I had sciatica. And so at the time, before they recognized they had an opioid crisis, they gave me a standing prescription for Vicodin, hydrocodone, Flexerol, and ibuprofen. And so I was abusing it. They were mailing that to me every day. And so I was abusing alcohol. I was abusing the prescription drugs. Just, it was almost like I was an adrenaline junkie. I started playing scratchers just for the high when you hit. And I was a mess. And it wasn't until this last year where I finally sat down when I was filing my VA claim that I wrote everything out, and I go, I got PTSD. And I'm just now seeking the counseling. So if for anybody who's been to the war zone, you can't unsee some of the things you saw. And sometimes we stuff it. And I didn't want to talk about it. I just stuffed it. And I remember I was talking to an Air Force TAC P when I got back. Those are the guys that go behind enemy lines and direct fire. They're real bad boys, right? And he was just tree trunk arms and just built. And he goes, "How'd it go?" And I go, "Well, every day I had 10 stack of intelligence telling me how I was going to get blown up today." You know? I go, but I just put that in the back of my mind because the team's leading off of me, right? I mean, if you're scared, the team's scared.
Exactly.
And so I had to, somebody advised me, stay cool, even though in the back of your mind you're going, "Oh crap, I might get blown up today." I stuffed it. And he looks at me and he goes, "Oh, so you compartmentalized that. You stuffed it in the back of your brain. Have you talked to a counselor about it?" Well, at the time, I was a lieutenant colonel going for colonel. I wasn't going to tell everybody what was going on in my brain. They would have kicked me out. And so it wasn't until recently that I finally admitted that I need help, you know?
And see, okay, so here's the deal, y'all, about PTSD and dealing with just like that's trauma, pretty much. You know what I'm saying? Like, because it's unlike living here, right? So, like, the biggest thing you got to deal with if you go to work every day, you may have a boss that's cool or not, or whatever the case is. You got to deal with traffic. You got to deal with paying taxes and bills and stuff like that. That's a stress within itself. Not saying that everyday life is different, but like when you're overseas, man, like it's not just you that you have to protect, especially in your position. He had men that he had to protect. You know what I'm saying? There was lives at stake on a regular basis, man. And I was enlisted. He was in leadership. You know what I'm saying? So we pretty much seen some of the same stuff, man. And the loss of life will be just like that, where you may see it here on the news and kind of shrug your shoulders or shake your head like, man, that's messed up. Like, we're on the battlefield and we're seeing it. It's our guys. Or it's somebody that you get a call, you have to go rush. And I'm gonna say this, JR, I appreciate you even sharing that, because it took me a while to actually acknowledge, because I drank a lot. I didn't know how to talk to my wife. I didn't know how to talk to my kids. I actually hurt my son when, because I slept like maybe 3-4 hours a day. You know what I'm saying? Like, but at the drop of a hat, any noise, you have to be up. You have to be alert. And I always have my blade next to me and my rifle across my chest when I went to sleep. So that was one thing I had to deal with was when I came home, I would always reach for my rifle. Oh my gosh, I would always reach for my rifle. I'm like, where's my rifle?
I had a 9mm right here.
Always try to, and that's like your muscle memory. And the crazy thing is, before we got in our vehicles, because our vehicles were parked in a bullpen, but the bullpen didn't have a gate to it, and anybody can get holds of it. So we would have to, do the 360 check, make sure, like, take the mirror up underneath. You wouldn't sacrifice yourself, you know what I'm saying? Because you can get in that truck and that thing explode, or you sit down and you sat on a pressure plate, boom, that's your behind, you know what I'm saying? Ain't nothing you could do about it. So when I came home, I was checking, like, man, I remember the post office, the mailman put a box in the door, right? And I was like, oh crap. So I told wifey and them, y'all go that way. I done got out with my 9mm. I'm about to shoot the box from a distance, right? She like, what is wrong with you? What's wrong with you? I said, man, it's ordinance, bro. That's like an explosive, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm tripping. So I had to go. I went to Oya. Sherry Belagera was my counselor for 5 years. And she helped me. Oh my gosh, man. She was no nonsense. I had went through 5 counselors before her. Right. And I had to admit that, you know what I'm saying? Again,
unpack it.
Man, look, VA is good at giving you medicine. They would just, it just
yeah, and they were treating the symptom and not the problem. And
yeah.
And so what you got to get to, if anybody on this call is struggling with substance abuse or alcohol or pornography or gambling or whatever, you got to ask yourself, what is the root cause of your behavior? You may have to go deep to a trauma in your childhood or whatever, but you need to get to the root cause of why you're acting the way you're acting. And I'm at the beginning stages of that. I'm actually going to be seeing a counselor, Charlie Sawyer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I've met with him a couple times, and he noticed immediately that I'm just wound too tight, and still wound too tight. And but it's not a sign of weakness to ask for help. Hollywood's going to say, "Oh man, men don't cry." Well, Schwarzkopf said he never trusted a man who didn't cry. So sometimes you got to let it out. You got to find somebody you can trust and share what's going on with your heart, mind, and soul, and be open. Because the only way to deal with a problem is to recognize you have a problem. And a lot of times that's the hardest thing, is to say, okay, I have a problem. And that, by getting the problem into the light, you can begin to deal with it. But if you walk around in denial, you're going to keep doing what you're doing and you're not going to change. And some of your behavior can be destructive. It can affect your relationship with your wife and your kids and all of that. And so, I don't know what everybody's scenario is on the call, but if you got some issues you're dealing with, you need to deal with them. And you got to stop avoiding them. Because as a mortuary affairs officer, I can guarantee that I buried everything from a SIDS baby, 2 years old, to an 18-year-old that thought he was bulletproof on a motorcycle, to a 35-year-old F-16 pilot that had a midair, to an 89-year-old dying of cancer. So you always want to kiss your wife goodnight, tell her you love her, even if you had a really bad day, because one of you might not wake up. And I had a case in Alaska where husband and wife got into an argument. Wife went up to bed. Husband stayed down. She vomited in her sleep and died in her sleep. And you talk about a 1,000-yard stare. The last words that he spoke to his wife were hateful. Man, we are not promised tomorrow. I mean, I could get shot on 38th Street here in Indianapolis and not make it home. So make sure you're always in a good place before you lay your head on the pillow at night, because you might not wake up tomorrow. And I don't mean that to sound morbid. I just mean that I've seen families that got into a fight and they don't talk, and then they're mad about not talking, and they go 20 years without talking. It's better to. There's an old singer from a band in the 70s called Stevie Nicks from Fleetwood Mac. She says a wound gets worse when treated with neglect. Sometimes when you cut somebody and you didn't mean to cut them, you need to deal with it right then and there before the scar tissue runs too deep and you get a division in your life, because you just live life with regret. So if you need to apologize, apologize. If you made a mistake, admit it, own it. I make mistakes every day. Just trying to make them all before noon, so I got the rest of the day to fix it. But
Yeah.
you got to live your life that way, and you won't have regrets. And then I think somebody commented, love is the answer right now for everything that's going on in the world. Love. Speak truth and love. Stop judging people by what political party they're with, or do what Martin Luther King said, and when he said, I can foresee a day when we judge a person not by the color of their skin, but the content of their character. And we need to get to that, because we're being ripped apart right now. And the answer is love. And don't judge people. I'd almost want to find out from a homeless veteran, how did they end up homeless? Did they end up being an opioid addict because the VA was dishing it out, and then they were drinking and abusing drugs and they lost their job and that's how they got homeless? When really they needed somebody to come alongside them and help them. And a lot of those guys don't even realize with the DD Form 214, they can get a low interest VA loan. The VA signs for the house. You just got to make the payments. So it breaks my heart to see people homeless and see people struggling. And we got to do what we can to serve one another, because we've all got something. You may not have money, but you may be a great cook. Maybe cook a meal for somebody. You may not have money, but you're a mechanic. Maybe go fix somebody's car, right? I mean, we've all got a certain amount of gifts that have been given to us, and share those gifts to serve others.
I'm glad you said that, JR. So, y'all, here's the deal. Right now, I'm supporting two organizations, but it'll definitely be more than that, man. It's like whoever I come in contact with the money that I receive from this, and I did run the ads for this actual live, because every little bit helps. I don't care if I made 12 cents off this video, that money has to go to something bigger, because like you said, so I'm gonna tell you, there was a homeless vet I ran into, right? No, I didn't run into him. I ran into his counselor, and this homeless vet is getting his life back together. He was a combat medic, right? And went through all type of hell, and now was getting his life back together, and is an ideal citizen. He's an ideal veteran, and he is working back, right? And he's going to benefit. The money that we raised for this month is going to him. That money's going to him, because I'm gonna tell you, the hardest thing I ever saw, man. This kid, man, I was in Iraq. I was in Mosul. This kid, man, young kid, man, he was a firefighter, man. That's all he wanted to do. He said, man, my dad was a firefighter, and my grandfather before him, and he was 10 days away from coming home. And the dumbest thing in the world happened. He lost his life, and he had just had a baby. He was on his way to see his baby, man, and I was the second one on the scene to see what remained of this guy. And all he wanted to do was be a firefighter, be a dad, and serve his country. That's it. That's it. But then you think about the people. So, like when I started this show, that theme song that's actually quoted, that is Reagan. That is the former President Reagan. What was quoted. So if you didn't catch the intro, you can go back at a later time. But some people don't get a chance to live outside of serving. wherever country they go to serve and fulfill their contract, that's where their body is, or their soul has been taken away from that particular ground. And regardless of their bodies being brought back here to the States, if there's anything left, not trying to be morbid, but this is real life, because between the both of us, I mean, you said 105 years between you and your family, 105 years of service for that flag. And again, not to be political, man, but some people get so caught up in the left or right wing to where I'm like, you guys, we're all fighting for the same flag. And some of you have not been in a situation where you were willing to sacrifice your life for the liberties of the people to walk around here freely. Okay, I have a lot of respect for JR in that aspect. And here's a good thing about me and JR. If me and him have a difference, we can talk, iron it out, and keep it moving. You know what I'm saying? Because he served, I served, and we were here to serve people.
Yeah.
That's it.
As I would say, probably a month ago, I said something that hurt you, cut you. I could tell I cut you. I blew up your phone because I didn't want the sun to go down on that. Because I needed to apologize. Because I was clueless and I was wrong. And I had to go, hey, sorry, dude. Sorry. Because it's okay to disagree. We just don't have to be disagreeable about it, right? And everybody right now, if you have a different opinion, you're a heathen or you're evil. It's like, no, man. Diversity should include diversity of thought. And we were all raised differently, and we may go to different churches or whatever, or may not go to church at all. So we all come from different backgrounds, and we're going to be different. But it's okay, and we ought to be able to talk through those things. That we see it differently, and we ought to be able to share the viewpoints. At the end of the day, we may end up still disagreeing. You hold your viewpoint, I'm going to hold mine, but I consider you a brother.
And so I consider you, brother, and here's the deal. Bro, you support me, I support you, and I now when we started the show, I remember the last time I talked to him, he was fighting for Fullbird Colonel, right? You ran into some issues. He ran into some issues. I know that. And I hadn't talked to you again about it, man. So like, dude, he retired as a colonel. You know what I'm saying? And despite everything, you think about that, man. Think about and we're not gonna give Luck no credit in this. God blessed him despite all the hell you've been through.
Well, and that's why I say that a lot of times when I get ready to go do something that I know is good and right and pleasing to God, I always know that I'm on the right track when I come under attack. Even at work, when I want to do something that I know is the right thing to do and it's good and it's righteous, people come out of the woodwork and start attacking, and I go, okay, there's the dark side. This is a classic Star Wars. I'm a child of the light. They're working for the dark side. And as soon as I come under attack, I know I'm on the right track. And I'm going to push through the naysayers and push through the obstacles. And a lot of times at the end of the day, you get blessed for that. When you stand firm in what you believe and you're willing to fight for it, that's righteous. But don't cave in when you come under attack. Just kind of look at why you're being attacked and what's the issue. Now, there's times where you could be wrong, legitimately wrong, and you're being attacked for being wrong, and maybe you need to reflect on that. Maybe you're going down the wrong path. Because somebody will come up to you sometimes and say, dude, you ought not do that. And that's a true friend, right? Yeah. Because a true friend's going to tell you when you're blowing it. But as the old book would say, a good friend will tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear, right? Yeah. The wounds of a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses. And so, go do that. Go drive 900 miles an hour after 15 beers. Yeah, great idea. No. A good friend's going to say, man, dude, give me your keys. You got too much to drink. Or, hey, man, you shouldn't be talking to your wife that way. Or, hey, you were a little bit harsh on your son. Whatever that is, and it may cut you at the moment, but they're doing it because they love you as a friend, and they're telling you you're blowing, right? But we got to be more real. Right now, everybody's texting on the phone, and we're not having deep, meaningful conversations anymore. And we need to get back to that.
Yeah, yes, wise words, Colonel. Impressive. Thank you guys for commenting. Thank you for sharing it out. I appreciate that. Preach. He said preach.
All right.
I do want to say this, man, and I don't want you guys to take this like because of his experience, what he shared, right? Um, everybody has their own struggle. All I'm saying from this show, everybody that's on the other side of this camera, and those that's watching this on a replay, you know what you have to deal with. You know your temperance and stuff like that. You know the struggles you've had, and sometimes it's not the other person. You have to take accountability for yourself. And this is something like when I say strength, bro, the fact that you said this in front of all these people, which I didn't know he was gonna say, you literally said, I am getting help right now.
Well, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I literally just left VA hospital yesterday getting help because I need help. I struggle with a lot of things, right? And of course, I love because normally, bro, like we throw watches up on the screen. We talk about our watches, stuff like that. We got our nerdy watch club, so to speak. But at the end of the day, I knew, we lost more soldiers to suicide when we came home than we did in combat.
And there's always hope. There's always hope. But the thing of it is I'll share a story with you about why I hate cell phones and everything else. There was a guy teaching a class at the headquarters,
Mm-hmm.
and I got pulled away by the general to go talk to him about something because we were in HCOE and we're getting a site visit.
Right.
And he's like, "Hey man, what's up with that?" I go, "I got it, sir. I'll bring the team. I got it. We'll figure it out." By the time I got back to the class, he was the only one left. And I asked him how he's doing. He says, "Not really very well." Now, sometimes when somebody says that, we'll say, "Hey man, go watch the Colts game or go watch WNBA or, hey, rub some dirt on Johnny." But I was like, I stopped. And I talked to him for 2 hours. And what happened was he got a Dear Jane letter from the war zone.
Ooh.
His wife divorced him from the war zone. And he told his boss about it, and his boss thought, well, you're weak, and fired him. Well, he ended up teaching this class, and I told him, I go, "Hey man, this class that you just taught, that was really, really good. You're doing real good things that's going to bless the organization." I said, "You need to recognize you're under a spiritual attack right now. Because the evil one's not happy about what you just taught. Because he's teaching supervisors, some Dale Carnegie principles and how to be better leaders, right? Which can impact everyone. Because we've all worked for bad leaders that just ruin your day and make it very stressful." And so I sat down and talked for 2 hours. And one day he called me up and he goes, "Hey man, what are you doing? Want to go to lunch?" And I go, "Yeah." So I get in the car and he goes, "How you doing?" And I go, "Honestly, I'm not worth doing a crap. I am not doing worth a crap right now. I'm doing all this meaningless crap and shuffling paperwork at the headquarters, and I just don't feel like I'm making a difference." He looks at me and he says, "You remember 6 months ago when you sat down and talked to me?" He goes, "I want to let you know you made a difference in my life because I was contemplating my own funeral."
Mm.
He was going to commit suicide that night. But when I asked him how he was doing, I stopped and I listened, and he said, "Not very good." And I cleared everything. I was 2 hours late home, missed dinner and all that, but it was the right thing to do. That you got to listen to other people. When they say they're struggling, stop and talk to them and ask them, because I know of at least 2 suicides that I've prevented because I had this down and I was engaging somebody,
Right.
engaging them deeply and talking to them and asking them how they were doing. And fortunately for them, they were honest with me because they said they were struggling. And then I was able to listen to them for a while,
Right.
and offer some advice. And I think that's why suicide rate is high for everyone right now.
Yeah. It's the highest I've ever seen.
Well, and it's because young teenage girls will go see photoshopped pictures on here of their friends with the perfect Facebook photo and happy family, and it's all staged. And so they're uncomfortable with their body, or, teenage girls can be really struggling with their appearance, right, or whatever. And they'll see what is not reality on the phone and compare their life to it. And people just don't. I highly recommend everybody just cut back on social media and try to go for a walk in the woods and see God's graphics, because they're pretty good. Um, Go see the stars, or enjoy the flowers or the birds or the crickets. I mean, this place is rocking right now with the crickets and squirrels and birds and rabbits and red-tailed hawks.
Yeah, bro, he got a bird feeder out out there, and I seen a couple squirrels run through here.
The
Y'all can
squirrels
hear
are out
the
there.
cicadas.
They're playing tag. It's funny, man. Tag, you're it. No, I'm not. You're it. And then they'll chase each other up the trees. And we're so busy in our lives that we don't stop, slow down long enough to have a quiet time and enjoy God's creation. Because you got to get grounded, man. You got to unplug for a minute and get grounded. Now, I'm not saying unplug from this, because I'm hoping that for anybody who's listening to the call or the replay, reflect on where you're at in life. And if you're not where you need to be, ask yourself, what do I got to do to get there? And if you're struggling with something, go ask for some help. That is not a sign of weakness at all. It's a sign of strength. And I think, not to get preachy, but he who humbles himself is exalted, and he who exalts himself. So if you're walking around like you got a perfect life and everything's great, and nobody's perfect, and don't even pretend like it. So just get real. That's the bottom line deal. Just be real with each other.
Yeah. So in the description right now, the organization is Indy Warrior uh Partnership, right? I know a lot of you guys are out of state. I will still say utilize that. Get in touch. The guy's name is Aaron, or just like get in touch with them just for information and allow them, because they are a sister organization to like a bigger one, right? It's a younger organization, and there's so many different legs and veins to this. So I'm going to say, regardless of what state you're in, use that information. Let them know what it is, man. And I urge you, I'm telling you, I urge you, man, because I will say this. I thought about it myself at one point, like deleting myself, man, and I tried it. I made an attempt. I couldn't bring myself to it, but I was there at that point just because life was just so hard. And I thought it was too much to bear and to deal with. You know what I'm saying? I felt like I couldn't get from under the stress, the pressures, hearing the voices and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Because that's, I mean, like you said earlier, once you see something, you can't unsee it. And there's things that I've seen that isn't natural. I say it's not natural for the average human being to see, man. Like we've seen the worst of humanity. Like when I tell you there's no winners in war, man. You know what I'm saying? Like people, like you can say activate, go over there, shoot a couple bullets, man. The movies that y'all see, the rockets flying through, man. Look, all that is that's fantasy land. When it's real, boots on the ground, bro. Like you can't unsee that stuff. And there's no amount of training that can get you prepared for that.
No, yeah. We did a combat landing in Kabul, and I got off that airplane. Some people grabbed me, gave me an M4, and threw me in the back of a black SUV, and I'm like, I ain't in Kansas anymore.
No, right.
I mean, and it got real quick, and going on those streets where you just didn't know. And the scariest moment I ever had was I rounded a corner one time. I was in the lead truck because I made my Sec 4 guys the convoy commanders in Truck 2.
Okay.
I didn't need to be the convoy commander. I was the ranking officer that signed off on the trip ticket. I was the convoy commander. No. I'm gonna let the guys that are experts at security do that. Rounded the corner and saw an Afghan with a video camera.
Oh.
And I'm telling you right now, what their tactic was is they would videotape you hitting the IED so they could collect the bounty.
Yep.
And I'm telling you, like an Indy car would tell you that right before they hit the wall, everything goes slow motion.
Yeah.
For about 5 seconds, everything went slow motion because I was just so pumped on the adrenaline that everything time slowed down. And to this day, I don't know why I'm alive. Maybe because God protected me.
That's true.
But I know my mom was praying for me, and I had a lot of people back home praying for me. And prayer works. I can, and maybe that'll be for another time. I can tell you at least 5 times I had prayers answered. I also got that little girl back from Afghanistan for heart surgery.
Wow.
Back to Riley Children's Hospital. And so, I would tell you, if you go to McDonald's drive-thru and they ask you round up for Ronald McDonald House, round up, man, because
do it. Yep.
When I sent them back for that surgery for Asma Sharifullah, the grandparents came with her, and they stayed at Ronald McDonald's house for free for 2 months straight. And I'm telling you, they had no money. You think we have poverty in the United States? Poverty in Afghanistan
is different.
People have no food. Okay, so, but it's just a little thing. Round up when you're McDonald's. It goes to Ronald McDonald House, which houses people for families that are struggling because they got a child that needs surgery or whatever. That's a great organization. And to the people from outside the state, there's a lot of organizations out there that are doing some real help. I suggest you research who they are, because there's some people out there that are lining their pockets with the money.
Yep.
Take a look at them and see how much of the money is actually going to the direct need. And you want to find one that's in the 90 percentile where the money collected goes to the need, and they got a small amount going to the admin fees because somebody's got to administer it. But look for those ones that are given to the need. And we all got ways that we can serve in our community.
Yep.
Regardless of where you're from, find ways to do that, and you'll sleep better at night.
So I'm gonna tell you this, y'all. 100% of the proceeds that you guys spend with me, I take care of the administrative fees. I pay for that out my pocket, and I've been doing that for 4 years now. Been doing it for 4 years without fail. Right? I've had, who you are, that have sent me stuff to give out and whatnot, and all I can tell you is this, y'all. In closing, JR, I appreciate you sharing your story. You know what I'm saying? And matter of fact, I'm gonna let JR. You want to have a closing statement? I got to give you something. I got to go to the truck. I'm gonna let JR do closing statement.
Well, I'm kind of honored and humbled that Travis asked me to be on this podcast, and there's a lot more that I could share, but we're limited on time. Who knows if it wasn't that bad, he might invite me back. But I'm hoping that some of you might have found a nugget in there that might have hit a nerve or meant something to you. I'm not smart enough for a hidden agenda, and so I wear my heart on the sleeve, I guess, which is not a bad thing. But I just think just go out and spread love if you can. Just spread love, because love conquers all, and love conquers hate. So when you love somebody that deserves to be in a fight, but they don't fight, and you give them a hug instead, watch what happens. They break down and cry because they wanted a fight, and you didn't give it to them. You gave them love instead. That'll really, that's a great motto to live by. So find ways to love others.
We can, bro. We can. So Lee J wants to ask a question. Go ahead with your question, bro. And while you doing that, Joe, you sent me a box full of goodies. This is one right here. And I want to present this to JR for even agreeing to doing this interview. So
Thank you.
this is for you, sir.
Oh man, that's awesome. That's awesome. I hope I never have to use it.
Oh man.
Who's got the question?
He said, your witness has blessed me more than you will ever understand. Okay, you got T White. Thanks for sharing, JR. So yeah, go ahead, ask your question, bro. He's probably typing right now. More than likely, he's typing right now. He's typing. I'll tell you what. One of the most fun things I got to do though. There was a kid over there, bro. Like we thought he had a deformity, right? He just had this big lump in his chest all the time, right? So we would take stuff out to him. Like he was like, Jundi, Jundi, Pepsi, Pepsi. So I give him Pepsi, whatever. And I said, hey man, look, if you know something's gonna happen, man, you gotta let me know, right? I had my interpreter tell me that. So he said, okay. I said, here, I'll pay you $5 for information. Man, I get this dude $5. He was like, oh man, this is great. But he was like, I gotta get food to go home, right? He's telling me this. So this guy reaches in his shirt and pulls out a slingshot. So that deformity I thought it was actual slingshot. He took a little smooth stone, he threw it in the bush, some birds flew out, and he popped the bird with a slingshot. He let it get up there and knocked it down. I said, yo, can you do that again? He was like, yeah. I said, man, you can't do it again. If you do it again, I give you another $5. Man, that boy threw another rock in some other bushes over there, and the birds came out. This dude, man, I'm talking about, man, more accurate than the M4, bro. Okay, let me see. The Bible says the greatest of all things is love. Yep. You must be a doozy of a question. he must So yeah, if you guys have any questions, man, feel free to rattle those off, man. Okay, there you go. First off, there we go. Let's put you up on screen. First off, I want to thank you both for your service. From this, I get the PTSD that comes from service. With any regrets, have you? Hold on, let me read that again. With any regrets, have you over the years been able to make peace with them? So you're fresh into your
I have. Yeah, I have. And I'll tell you, there was one thing I did when I was over there, and it was right after I had the incident with the video camera, where I suddenly realized I might not make it home, and so I wrote letters to my wife, my daughter, my son.
Good, bro.
And
Good.
you know, I apologize for yelling at my son at a t-ball game. Kids are playing t-ball. It's not Major League Baseball. It's t-ball. They're out there to have fun, and I was one of those parents yelling at my son, and I apologize for that, and any other things that I might have done as a father that I wasn't acting the way I should have. And so essentially, I had to get that all out to them to tell them, I loved them, proud of them, and I was sorry for anything that I might have done that was wrong as a father. And that was kind of just, and I'm living my life that way right now because, I'm going back to anybody I might have offended or hurt, and I'm making peace with people one at a time. And classic case was you and I at the church, within a day we got back together and we mended the fence. Yeah. And that's kind of how I'm living my life, as though I'm living it as though I might not be here tomorrow. And so therefore, it's caused me to kind of change the way I live. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it actually I had to forgive myself for some stuff. Now this was okay. So I'll put it to you like this. I know Go ahead. Take care of yourself, man.
I gotta get a Kleenex and then I
Take care of
gotta
yourself.
hit the head.
Okay, go ahead. I got it.
Be right back.
No problem, bro. Take your time. So to answer your question, bro, I had a situation when I was over, and I regretted so much to where I had this inner hatred for myself. Um, I had to deal with racism as well as a war, and I had this. The best I can say is I had PTSD before me going over there. Then I just had PTSD coming back. So I got to one point where I had to forgive myself, and it took a lot because I wasn't too fond of myself. And to answer that, bro, another reason why I have this channel is because of that. Like if you want to know like the root of Trap Vision 3D, me and Tony Woe actually had a conversation, and I was trying to find a way out of my own brain and trying to get around some of the bad mistakes I said. And here's one thing I want to share. Not saying that there are some bad cops out there, but I was in a police officer's role when I was in Iraq, and I did something that was extremely questionable. That if you being black, seeing a white cop doing something to a black guy, you would flip. It that will be, but that just put me in the place of the white guy, and I did something unbecoming of a soldier. It didn't end in loss of life, but that wasn't my training. So I had that on my brain for years. And as I was going through counseling and seeking counsel, my wife joined this church that we both belong to. And I literally now with this channel, so every time I hit record on this, it's more than just talking about a watch. It's more than talking about specs. It's more than talking about going to an event or something like that. I get to express myself on here, and I get to forgive myself day by day. You know what I'm saying? And do like that's why I go so hard in the paint for giving back to people and stuff like that. And even doing this, that's why, man. Like y'all don't understand. I couldn't even sleep last night, man. I said, man, I can't wait to do this interview, man. Man,
Podcast. Oh my God,
bro, I was like, yo, this is yo, y'all just like this. That's just my thing, man. And one thing, like Jr. got his boots on right now, man, and it's like it's taking me there, bro. Like, I feel like I need my Humvee out there, man. Truck 10, man. That was my truck, man. They ain't had no AC, but that thing was strong. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But let's see. So beautiful. That is image of a strong man. Yeah. I would say. Thank you for your question. And we're gonna end on that right there, man. JR, again, thank you for just your time, your passion, and man, listen, I cried on my show so many times. Bro, look, I mean, I got, I don't know, several episodes where I break down over stuff, man. Because the one thing I want people to understand is, man, I got this saying, it all started with a watch, right? But like the end of that, it ends in family. Yeah. Because a lot of these people, I met some of these guys, man. This a guy named Tony White. This guy was just talking to him, man. We went out to Virginia, right? I said, hey, we going out. We drove out there. Me and wife, we drove out there. He said, don't worry about it. I'm gonna set you up. I'm gonna get you there. And you know how people just say stuff. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I didn't think he was a liar, but I was like, okay, maybe he's taking the initiative to point me in the direction. When I got to the hotel that I got to, he know this. Man, listen, man, this hotel was so beautiful, so nice. And they said, hey, man, P. White, that's your brother, man. Like he told me y'all was coming. They treated us so well. Yeah. Reduced the price of the thing, and they was like, hey, we're going to extend out. $150 room, they charged me $20 for. I ain't going to tell y'all what it is, because I don't want y'all trying to flood over there. They're like, Tony White sent me. but no, he took care of it, you know what I'm saying? So
yeah, that's what we do, man.
Yeah.
You take what you have and you give what you can. And then it would be amazed how much that means to other people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I appreciate you guys. Make sure you share this stuff out, man. Use the link that's down below. If you want to give, man, I will be having another show. You have an opportunity to give this weekend, right? We're trying to get $1,000 for our veterans, man. So if you want to participate and donate, you will get that. We do have some gifts, some parting gifts, if you will, that's coming from other people. People are sending stuff in for those that's donating. So that's why I'm not treating this as a raffle or waffle, if you will. It is you get something for just participating, man. We have a lot of great people out there, a lot of supporters, man. And I thank you. If you are new here, you made it this far, an hour and 10 minutes into this live stream. If you're not a member or if you're not subscribed, go ahead and knock that out. Hit that notification bell. We will resume the watches, but we're gonna do this, man. We can do a part two if you like, bro.
I got a part two, man.
Okay, we're gonna do a part two.
Part two. Well, let me ask the audience. What I was going to share on the part two is God answering prayer. And there's at least 5 examples where God directly answered a prayer. And I would say that a borderline miracle. Well, I think it is a miracle, but some people may say God doesn't do miracles anymore, but I think he does. And but I tell you what, I had some specific scenarios I was working through, and I needed help. And the only way I was going to get it done was through prayer. And I thought maybe I would share that if you guys are interested.
Before we get there, you can actually say that, but I want to read this comment. I love both of you, and I truly thank you both for your service. we often look we often look to the comics for superheroes, but reality, you both are literal superheroes, man. I appreciate that, bro. I appreciate that. Appreciate that. And I say that about I oftentimes think about like World War II vets and Vietnam vets before me. You know what I'm saying? Like
Those guys paid a real
they
price.
paid a huge price for us, man. And
So I would tell you that there's heroes that don't wear the uniform, and I think teachers can be heroes, police, firefighters, everybody can be a hero, and you can be a hero to somebody else by having the courage to do the right thing when no one else will. But I appreciate that comment.
yup, man, bro, you killing me. I'm trying to keep it together. I'm trying to keep it together, bro. I'm trying to keep it together, boy.
Oh, it's hot on the porch. I'm not crying. My eyes are sweating.
Okay.
Send me the link to that.
Okay, all right, I will. Thank you guys for showing up, man. You guys have been amazing. Thank you for the comments, the questions, the love, the support, man. And y'all know, until the next lightning strike, man, y'all be blessed. Oh man, that's